Hello and welcome into episode 23 of Looking Up with Laird here on Sorare TV. I'm Andrew Laird, head of content at Sorare Data. Joined once again, and we're back, by Harry Trades and Sam Tighe today to add 4 more names to the Looking Up with Laird Sorare Data watch list, which is linked in the description below. Did we take 2 weeks off? We took a little time off. Schedules were a little wonky. Apologies for that, because I know there are millions of people waiting for this next episode as we come to the close of the European season. Sam, I'm going to start with you today, and I'm hoping that you are going to discuss a player that I own, because that always just makes me feel better. So why don't you kick us off today?
Well, okay, there's a real case for me to be discussing Boubacar Kamara today, as is the long-running joke. But I'm gonna leave it because it's tough for European players right now. For me anyway, I mean, I'm going to struggle with it. I'm trying to look forward as much as possible, but it's not really my area. But I do know that Emmanuel Reynoso is finally back in the country. He is back with the team. He is not suspended. He is cleared to return to team activities. He's been forced to sit in front of the camera and record a very strange apology video for the Minnesota United website. Where he has consistently stated over the course of 3 excruciating minutes that he knows what he did was wrong and he's really, really, really sorry. I don't know really what happened. We're still not 100% clear on details. Probably not worth going into. But he's missed the first 13, 14 weeks of the season. Didn't return to the US when he was supposed to, or when he was called to, and then was suspended by the league as a result. But he's been cleared to return, cleared to play. No one's happier about this than Minnesota United's manager, who has just been talking about Reynoso pretty much every single week. Even when he's not there, he manages to bring him up in almost every post-match interview and say something along the lines of, "I wish he was here." Well, he's here now. He's back, and looking at the price, obviously, we've seen a little bit of movement. Understandably, the announcement was a couple of weeks ago that he'd returned to the USA, and furthermore, we've now had confirmation that he can return back to team activities. Yep, we've seen a little bit of a spike, but I look at the scores and I look at the price still, and I don't think anybody's missed out necessarily, because Reynoso, when he's playing, he puts up huge scores. He is one of the most powerful cards in the Americas, most powerful cards in the game, frankly. He's on set pieces. He takes penalties. He scores 20-yard golazzos. He is the prime playmaker. The entire team is built around him. Like, the whole thing is built to function and serve Emmanuel Reynoso. And when he plays well, he plays ridiculously well and scores very highly. So for what is roughly, I think, about 160 for a rare right now, I mean, in my mind, I compare Reynoso to the top tier MLS playmakers. I put him in the same tier, more or less, as like a Hani Mukhtar.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're very similar in terms of output. Mukhtar is 3 to 4 times more expensive than Reynoso right now. And Carlos Hill is even more so. I don't think he's quite at Carlos Hill's level of legendary status, but he's a serious, serious player. And he is way underpriced right now, considering he's back.
Yeah, I'm actually a bit... Okay, so we have some fantastic news about Reynoso in the fact that he has not returned yet. And I believe the latest news, this is, when are we recording this? What is this? Thursday, May 25th, that he's still a few weeks away from actually being match fit, which is funny because it seemed like all of the talk was like, oh, he's staying in shape. And then he got back and they were like, this is not the shape we were expecting.
Yeah. He was apparently playing street football in Argentina to stay fit.
Yes.
It's like, slightly different level.
Exactly. But the great news is he's got a match this weekend and then a midweek match, meaning Minnesota United have a match this weekend and then a midweek match, neither of which he is expected to play, which means his L15 should be 0 when he does play.
Woo! That's the dream, baby. The new João Paulo.
Yes. And everything you said, I'm all in on. Like, he is legitimately one of the best players in Major League Soccer. Everything on this team revolves around him. Minnesota just lost Robin Lod to is it months?
It was 4 to 6, I think.
A couple months, isn't it?
Yeah,
for sure.
So Laird was kind of their playmaker with Reynoso gone. They have a few other guys who are okay. It's one of those situations where Reynoso is just, it's kind of like New England. I'm not going to say he's Carlos Heel, but he is so much better than everyone else on the team. And if you just look at his scores, like you can see that he can put up huge ones. And so he absolutely is in that upper level of Major League Soccer and is way underpriced for where everyone else who can perform like him is. And yeah, I have a card of his. It helped me win like one of my best rewards. So it's, in fact, I believe this card that I have of him, not to show off, is like my like winningest card.
Wow.
Ooh. And which card in particular was it that you were so proud to get with him?
Carlos Heel.
I thought you were going to say Kevin
All-Star.
McAllister. I was convinced that was going to be K-Mac.
All-Star D4. And actually, so this was my greatest like month in Sorare. And you can tell how long ago it was because I was still in the hundreds of the 100s in game weeks, and we're about to hit 400. But I won All-Star Rare, they called it Division 4, and then Champion America back then, Division 3 Rare Pro. So that was like 2 of 3 weekends. Yeah. And I won Carlos Heel and Carlos Vela, and Reynoso was in both of those lineups. So I love this card.
And Cifuentes as well in the middle. I mean, you can't skip that.
That's right. Yeah. I forgot about that card. And so I can't wait for this card to get back. Like going into the season. So Reynoso signed a contract extension this past winter. Yeah. And it was like, oh, this is great, blah, blah. And then all this stuff happened. And like you said, we don't really know what happened. But now he's back and he's almost fit. And when he gets to be fully fit, he's going to presumably go back to being one of the best players, certainly Sorare wise, in Major League Soccer.
So the last time Emmanuel Reynoso kicked a competitive ball, Sorare still had the old threshold.
That's fun.
It was last November.
Right. Yeah.
It was before
the World Cup.
The last time he played a game of football, cap mode was not a thing. Oh, jeez. I've just done the maths in my head. I can't believe it. I mean, I bought this guy in October and I've been waiting for legitimately the entire time to unleash him. And now I can. God, I'm excited.
Yeah, he's one of those great players who has a high all around and also gets decisives. Like he doesn't just happen to take set pieces and nothing ever happens with him. I mean, he is a full-fledged classic attacking midfielder who everything goes around him. So I love it. I absolutely love it. Great way to start off. We're going to change our process a little bit. Harry has requested to go back to back because he's got 2 teammates who we were saying it's a big week for them, but also it's a horrible week for them. Harry, can you please explain why we have the best of both worlds with these picks?
Yeah, so these picks, like you just alluded to, are from the same team and only kind of become looking upable if the worst happens this weekend.
What is that word?
Looking upable.
I'm all in on that. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a great word. Of course, it's not a word, but it is for our show, right? The team is Leeds United. So, yeah, sorry if there's any Leeds fans watching. But the first player we'll get into is Brendan Aronson, who this season is apparently a forward card, which we're not annoyed about in any way. Doesn't really play as a forward, more of a cam, probably plays off the wing sometimes as well. But a player that, I mean, let's not sort of sugarcoat it, hasn't really set the world alight at Leeds. Nobody really has.
Tyler Adams.
Yeah, okay. But injuries in the last couple of weeks have probably, killed him and Leeds' chance of, survival and stuff. So, yeah, okay, that's a good point. Tyler Adams is probably the only sort of shining light in this sort of Leeds team. But from like an attacking sort of perspective in terms of decisives or whatever, nobody's really set the world alight at Leeds. Does Brendan Aronson, if the worst happens this weekend where Leeds do get relegated, I think they play Tottenham.
At home.
They play Tottenham at home. Leicester play West Ham, I believe. and they're both on the same points right now. West Ham have nothing to play for. Tottenham do have something to play for, technically, right? They could finish 7th.
Yes, but if Everton win, it's all irrelevant. Or if Everton draw, it's largely irrelevant because of goal difference, particularly for Leeds anyway. So they're kind of up against it, man.
Yeah. And yeah, Tottenham had a decent result last week, I believe, didn't they? No, they never. They lost to Brentford, didn't they? They were 1-0 up.
Lost to Brentford.
Yeah.
You can't trust Tottenham to do anything nowadays, mate.
You can't. You really can't. And then I don't know, a team like West Ham that didn't have anything on it in that Leicester game. I don't know. But regardless, if the worst does happen, we could see a load of sort of under 23 talent drop down to the Championship, where I don't personally see Aronson getting a move anywhere great, if I'm being honest. If anything, I think he's probably dubbed to stay if they do go down. And he's a player that I think could be effective in the Championship. Like, I don't know. I'm trying to think back to this season. I'm not going to compare him. I'm not going to say he is an Alex Scott because they are different. But there's definitely similarities in terms of like ball carrying, sort of agility wise. And I think Scott's a little bit more physical maybe. But regardless, I think with the set piece capability that Aronson does have, and I think probably would continue to have in the Championship, and we see a load of goals scored in the Championship from set pieces, I would hope that there could be a very decent budget for now under 23 forward option for next season. In him, there's international utility as well if you want it eventually. But I don't know. It's a weird one. Like, I'm seeing $54 for a rare, $4 for a limited, under 23 until 2025. I don't know. There's potential there. Like, I think it's a low risk buy in that, if that makes sense. There's not going to be many good under 23 forwards next season. I did it on, me and Feder went through on the podcast last night, and there's so many aging out, especially for midweeks as well next season. You won't have Mbappe's, you won't have your Gakpo's, you won't have your Carlsons and Pavlidis. There's loads. Osherman's out. Like, there's so many that are aging out. So I don't know. The players like your Dwight McNeil's could start to be. I mean, he's been great obviously since I tipped him, but no, ever since Laird won him, to be fair, he's been insane. But regardless, I do think there's room for under 23 midweek forwards and weekend forwards next season, like Brendan Aronson, to sort of shine through. So yeah, we'll have a little discussion on him before we get on to the next one. But yeah, what do we think?
I think the first thing worth pointing out, which you obviously did, was that he has midfielder and forward cards, and there are many, many more midfielder cards because he's got multiple seasons of them. Like, his MLS card is a midfielder card. His Salzburg card is a midfielder card. And so it's not until he got these Leeds cards that he became a forward. I do remember, I believe his Global Cup or National Series card, is a forward. And I remember thinking that was weird. And then it just turned over into his Leeds card. And it was like, okay. And so when you are looking at prices and everything, just make sure that you're actually buying the right card. That's like, we've all made the mistake. Some of us multiple times in the same week, but just look out for that. Look out for that. But I think you're right, Harry, that, I mean, it's by the time we get into really next season, we'll realize there are plenty of U23 forwards. You just don't know who they are yet, but everything points, or not everything, but there's plenty that points to Aronson being at least a usable piece, particularly if he does get those set pieces at Leeds, because they'll be playing, presumably, if they go down all the time. Are there, not to like go off topic a little bit, but are there any players that you would expect to go down to the Championship and you wouldn't think that it's a benefit Sorare wise? Like, I feel like we just hear a lot like, oh, well, they're getting relegated and they'll play games all the time, so that's great. Is it ever a negative?
Potentially. I mean, I'm just looking through the Leeds squad now, just kind of, I don't know, it's hard to really say, isn't it? Because you're dropping down a level. It's a different style of football. So it can't suit everybody. But I'm just trying to look through their sort of top scorers. Sinistera, I don't know, these like fast, sort of tricky players, like, they have an advantage anyway. They're fast and that's kind of their USP as it is. The game only gets quote unquote slower down there, even though it's more physical, you could argue. I don't know. I don't know. It's a really weird. I don't know if Sam could speak on it a little bit better than I could. I don't know. It's a weird question.
I think broad strokes argument is that the more spindly players, they will get knocked around a lot more. It gets pretty violent down there. I've spoken to a few players that have done, very talented players that have done loans in the Championship, and they said it's made a man out of them. And they've been hobbling around and kicked from pillar to post, and they come through it because they're all footballers and they all have to do it. But the question becomes like load management and like managing your body. And when you're growing, particularly if you're younger, so like look at Wilfred Gnonto, for example, like he unfortunately will be treated terribly in the Championship if he has to play there, because he's ridiculously talented, but also ridiculously small. And so undoubtedly on a level basis, it's great for him to drop down and batter a few people. But I mean that in a less literal way than Cardiff City's defenders will try to batter him in return. So that's probably the concern. And it just maybe puts them at rotation. I actually don't think Aronson's going to have a problem with that, because he's a busy body, isn't he? And he can take a few hits. I don't think it's a concern for him. It would be someone like Gnonto and Sinistera, who seems to be made of glass. I think they're the kind of types that you end up looking at.
That makes sense.
And it's more. I reckon it's more of a mentality thing. Like if they think they're a prem, that they've been brought into Leeds as a prem player. You're a bit time. You then get relegated. It does sort of mentally. Well, it could mentally, affect a few players in the sense they might think they're better than that, and they're not. They're in the Championship at that point. No offers have come in, whatever. And sometimes that realization can kind of definitely hinder performances. So you've got to be careful, I guess. It's harder for us to know, I guess, in terms of, their psychology and how these guys think. But, someone like Aronson, I think would really like that sort of American mentality, the kind of, I don't know. I just see him wanting to do really well there and kind of have a point to prove, where I can't think of another example on the page right now. Maybe this Rutter guy, like he's not playing in the Prem. I can't see him being happy, being in and around a Championship League side at that point. I don't know the situation, but that's kind of my example of it, I guess.
That's fair. Sorry for the tangent there. Who is joining Brendan Aronson on our list and in the Championship next year, most likely?
Yeah, so it's a weird one, because I think if these two players do play together, there could be some sort of sharing responsibilities of these, quote unquote set pieces that we love to reference. And it's Sam Greenwood, who is another forward card actually for Leeds. A little bit younger. I think he comes in at 21. So loads of under 23 until 2026. They got him from Arsenal a couple of years ago as like a 16-year-old. I think he got offered a scholarship at Arsenal, whatever, and maybe didn't see a path at the time, to break into that first team, so chose to go to Leeds. I think he's Newcastle born. I think he's a Newcastle fan. He's a Geordie, regardless. And yeah, I mean, he's had a couple of starts this season. Towards the end of the season, I think he actually started against Newcastle maybe 2 or 3 games ago. Hasn't really done too much, which I'm not really surprised of, because he's young, he's inexperienced in that sense. But if you watch him play as a footballer, you can kind of tell that this guy has like elite level delivery, which, like we just mentioned in the Championship, could become ultra important. Like this guy has incredible delivery and off both feet as well. Like you rarely see football players, we'll reference Cherky, obviously one of the fan favorites on Sorare and in the Sorare community. He's probably right now for me, the best off both feet I've seen in a long time, since probably Asante Cazorla.
Woo!
Big Santi.
If you didn't say it, I was going to start shouting his name.
I was watching a YouTube video earlier. Alex Iwobi was on Filthy Fellas. I don't know if anyone watching knows what that is. But anyway, and he referenced Santi and said, he was like the best player he played with at Arsenal and stuff, which probably isn't a surprise to anyone. But yeah, Sam Greenwood, like I said, great set piece capabilities. It's weird, like in like the 18s and the 21s, where like he completely ripped it up in like the Premier League 2 and stuff. He was playing more of like a 9/10, but he's come into this Leeds team as like an 8, and I'm not sure he has the legs to really do that. Well, definitely not in the Prem from what I've seen. It doesn't look like he's physically there yet for me, or he might really never be, and that's kind of kind of a good thing on Sorare if he's an unbelievable championship, talent. Obviously they get chances in the Prem or whatever, but I don't know. From what I'm seeing, technically he looks brilliant, but I just don't know if he has the other side of the game, which is becoming ultra important, obviously, and has been for years now. But I think more so, going forward. But if anyone hasn't seen this guy's sort of delivery and stuff, and the type of goals he can score, he has technical ability coming out of his bum. I didn't want to say the A word, sorry.
You say coming out of both feet, both ears.
Yeah.
My mother would say coming out of both ears.
I would have said, the A word, but
out of his bum.
I didn't want to swear on Sorare data. On Sorare TV. But yeah, I will.
Quinny never does, so there's no reason for us to.
See, I'm just following a good example of Quinny. No, and yeah, full disclosure, I do own a Super Rare, which I've had for like 3 months. Never really been able to use it. It's the 2 of 10. I didn't quite get the 1 of 10 one for a little bit more than what I paid. Yeah, I had it for like a bit of a steal, to be honest. At the time, the market was on its A again. So yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that he can come good next season, of course. I'd like to add a rare at some point. What's the rare at? Like $50 maybe? I think there's one on auction actually. $46. I know, again, another gamble, but I don't see him going anywhere. There's no way he's warranted a move elsewhere off the back of what he's done this season or hasn't done. And yeah, contract until, it doesn't say there, but I think he's got a long-term contract. I think it's like 2026, maybe. I looked on SofaScore earlier, but regardless, I think there's there's definitely a player in there, and I think it suits the champ. Yeah, that's kind of me on my Leeds tangent.
I don't even know what to add to it. Seems all
I
good.
don't know anything about. I don't know anything about.
I don't know how Sam doesn't know Sam Greenwood.
We don't know all Sams. We're not. It's not like a club.
Well, yeah, maybe
it's not how it works, Harry.
I don't know. I'm just shocked that you didn't. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, he hasn't really done much, I guess, in that sense. But I thought the fact he came from Arsenal and stuff, maybe you were a bit clued in on that, but clearly not.
No. Everybody has blind spots.
There is. Yeah, that's true. That's true. No, you need.
So Harry sat here just wishing and hoping that Leeds go down.
Of course. Never like Leeds.
I mean, we've all surely made our bets here. Like I bought a Harry Suter rare specifically in preparation for Leicester to be relegated. It's not me wishing ill on them, but like it would really be quite helpful if they did. So we've all got our own version of this.
Is the thought that you wouldn't touch either of them if they stay up somehow?
I mean, I'm stuck with one of them. If that makes not stuck, but I have him.
Yep.
And I'm kind of okay with that.
I just meant if we knew they were staying up.
Oh yeah, it's definitely. I'll be honest. Yeah, it wouldn't be. The condition is for me. You look at these two. If they go down, I don't think it's really worth anyone's time, particularly if they stay up. I don't think you're not going to get a viable SO5 player out of them, in my opinion. Going off what they've done this season, that's all you can kind of go off, right? So yeah, no, I guess that's a good point for sure.
Depends who the manager is as well, doesn't it? I guess.
Of course, yeah.
And you would
really hard to call.
If they do stay, they have to do something different because fighting relegation until the last weekend is not what you want to do again. So,
and they're going to need, if they did stay up, they'd obviously strengthen. Well, they'd hope to strengthen. Then that just kind of maybe puts them down the pecking order even more potentially. So yeah, no, it's not a good thing in the SO5 sort of Sorare standpoint if they stay up. I think for these two players, but yeah, definitely a good thing if they go down.
Just wanted to clarify that, just in case somehow they escape.
I mean, it's possible. It's possible.
It is possible. It is
possible. I do think they're going to beat Tottenham on the last day because Tottenham away from home are just an absolute car crash. But I guess by the time people see this, this might already have happened. So it's a good judgment time. But I just don't think it's going to matter because I think Everton are going to do what they need to do. So I think they'll win in vain.
Always a tough ending that way. Sam, we've got one more to add. Who are you adding today? Or who's your second?
Yeah, so I'm going a little rogue on 2 counts. First of all, I'm going for a goalkeeper. I'm still waiting for the day Harry puts a goalkeeper in here, the coward. I think I'm on my 4th or 5th one now. I'm more than happy to go for it. But also the reason it's a little rogue is because, I think I know this player's next steps. I'm not 100% sure if those steps are good. I am just going to ask Laird once we've put the name in, because he will definitely know more than me. This man's name is Oscar Wally, W-H-A. He is a goalkeeper at Lugo, who are awful team in the second division in Spain. But he's pretty good. And he caught my eye this season because when Granada, quite incredibly, lost to Lugo, that's top of the league there, against bottom, earlier in the season, we somehow managed to lose to Lugo. Oscar Wally was basically the reason why. He was brilliant in goal. And you look at the scores, he's been a busy man, very busy man in the second division. They've benched him recently because his contract is finishing and they know he's not sticking around. They didn't, I think at this point where, game week, back when they lost to Sporting Gijón, I think they were like, right, well, I think we're down now, so let's look at who's under contract for next year. Perfectly reasonable thing to do.
Sure.
Oscar Wally, much too good to be sticking around at this kind of club going into the third tier. I thought he might go and land, maybe back up in La Liga, maybe go and get another starting job in the second division in Spain. All the reports this week suggest that he is off to Chivas Guadalajara in Mexico. Yeah. And then you look into it a bit, and his mother is Mexican, and his father is English, and he has a Spanish, is all three passports, I think, his three nationalities, because he's been playing on a Spanish registration. And because he's got a Mexican passport, he's allowed to play for Chivas because they have a Mexican-only rule, don't they? I think, is that still in existence, Laird?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, they do a bit of an athletic club thing with Basques, but for Mexicans. And all the reports this week would suggest that he is... I knew that he was looking at going to Mexico in the last couple of weeks, but in the last couple of days, it looks like Chivas have really arrowed in on him. And this is where I throw to you, Laird, because I read that Chivas' goalkeeper has been criticised. But
to be honest, Liga MX is well out of my expertise, but I know that basically nobody is good there. Like Chivas is just, they can upgrade at any position. And so at that point, I think they'll be perfectly content bringing in somebody. What's funny is considering a Liga MX goalkeeper who's not close to 40. Like they all seem very old. And I always look back at Guillermo Ochoa, who got a move to Europe at 37 or however old he was. And so surely it's an interesting situation to go there. So he's kind of in this weird boat where this is what happens if you pick a goalkeeper who's on a terrible team, that they have actually significant upside, because if for some reason they get a clean sheet, they probably made 12 saves to do it. Yeah. And it probably won't be as bad in Mexico, only because they just, for the most part, the league is just not a high attacking, high goal scoring league. But I don't know, price wise and being able to get somebody, I actually don't know if moving from second division Europe to the American, meaning Sorare divisions, is better or not. But presumably if he comes in July, then he could start right away. Like they restart on June 30th. And so that's pretty he could waltz right in.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously it's the clausura, is that what they call it in the second half? Clausura, the close or something, I don't know. That's the second half of the season. There's a nice little break. It looks like they've basically recruited him with that in mind. It did cross my mind there for a second there when you were talking about Mexican goalkeepers averaging the age of about 40. I was Oscar Wally at 29. Maybe they're bringing him into their academy. He's young by their standards. He's going to go and do his apprenticeship, and maybe when he's 35, they'll give him some first team football. But no, I mean he was good. He caught my eye when he played against my team. He was very frustrating because he ruined my team's day, and those are the kind of impressions that sometimes footballers can make. He scored pretty well. If you can take the starting job at Chivas, I think you're looking at a starting goalkeeper who is a pretty damn good player. I'd say it's potentially a risk. I don't know for sure what he's walking into because my knowledge of Chivas and Liga MX is not great, but it's $5. That's my last sentence.
So I think that if he goes, and I'm kind of trying to do a quick search here, it sounds like it's pretty much done. Like,
yes.
It's not officially done, but it sounds like he is their top option and would start presumably right away. I did want to correct one thing. The June 30th is actually the beginning of next season. That's the Apertura, which is the opening. Clausera is the one that starts in January.
Okay, my bad.
Clausera sounds like close, so it's the close of the season.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's actually that's a crazy price because you're not really going to find many starting goalkeepers even for the summer at the last sale was 0.08 ETH, $150 for the rare. And so again, you won't get him until July because he probably can't sign until then. And they don't even start till June 30th, but he should be locked in absolutely if he's there.
Yeah, hopefully, maybe. I mean, I decided to pick up a limited. He's been on my radar for a while. I was thinking about getting him as my second division rare goalkeeper, but then when Lugo sunk all the way down, it was like, okay, well, obviously I'm not going to look at that then. I still considered it because I thought he'd pick up another job in Spain. He's gone rogue, just like me, and you know what? He's gone to make his mum happy. Use that Mexican passport and go and play at a higher level. So. I'm happy to roll in on it at $5 on the limited and see what happens. I think it could have tremendous upside if it pays off.
The only reason why I've even heard of Lugo also, I know you're more of the second division Spanish expert here, but I've been recently addicted to Sorare data pick scores, and whoever is playing Lugo is a AAA at every position. So I was like, oh, this team must be pretty bad. Yeah, and there they are, right at the bottom of the table.
They are, yeah. They're the ones that beat us.
It's actually a pretty crazy table to see that Granada have actually lost 11 matches, which is more than everyone else in the top 6.
I know. And this is amazing evidence for anyone who doesn't understand or hadn't really realized just how damaging draws can be when you are trying to achieve something. I think people genuinely really underestimate how damaging draws are. Granada have just not drawn many games. They just, it's win or lose for the most part. And if you win more than you lose, obviously, look at the evidence. Eibar have, they've really S to the B, as Harry might put it. They have been on the most ridiculous winless run over the last month or so. I don't think they've won any games in the last 7 or 8. They were top. Lucas Zidane was a powerful, card. And, oh, Jesus. I mean, look at that. That's a bottle, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, terrible. Anyway, we've taken advantage to a point. Which is good. Hopefully this weekend, Granada are crowned champions. We've got Leganés at home. They're nothing to play for down in, 12th? We haven't lost a single game at home all season. We are unbeaten the entire campaign at home. Wow. We've one more game left. Come on, lads. Come on. Because I'm collecting the entire limited Granada team, and it would just be so much better and so much more explainable to my wife if it was the title-winning team.
Sure.
It's a real reason to collect that.
Yes. And then you sell them all when they're going to play in La Liga next year.
Yeah, they're all useless.
Yeah. Gentlemen, thank you for that. Just a reminder to everybody that these 4 players have been already put on the Looking Up with Laird on Sorare TV watch list, which you can find on Sorare Data if you just go to the watch list page and all of the community watch lists. I guess this is the moment of truth where we find out if we are still the number 1. That was close. Thank you to everybody for subscribing there. And if you are somehow watching this video and haven't hit the like button, please do so and subscribe to Sorare TV. I promise we don't actually do these shows every 3 weeks, although Sam may be giving up on us, so we'll see on that. We'll stay tuned on that one. Join us next week to find out if Sam is still here. And gentlemen, thank you for that, and I'll talk to you then.